that is a lightsaber. Do you ever use that to slice bread and toast it simultaneously? No? Probably pretty cool. Probably be pretty cool if you did though. Do you ever use it to like cook stuff like hot dogs or anything?
No.
No. What do you use it for? Okay, that wasn't worth asking. Hey, did you have a super good birthday weekend?
Yep.
Yeah. Did you get everything you had ever hoped you could have?
Not everything.
Not everything. Yeah, that makes sense. But you had a good one anyway? Do you want to make a big shout out and a big thank you to everybody who wished you well and sent cards and stopped by and gave you gifts and made your cake and everybody who worked so hard for your birthday?
I'll just say...
Don't tell me, tell them.
Shout out everyone.
Shout out everyone. Okay, that's like a thank you, I guess. So, today is Tuesday. Is Blaze taking over on Thursday? Is that what I remember? Maybe. Today is Tuesday. I will be leading us through Flourless Chocolate Cake. You can see that I've been joined by Kylo Ren. It's kind of funny, the autocorrect on the phone wanted it to be Kyle Ren, and I thought that would be super hilarious. Like Kylo's like lackluster brother or something. I don't know the whole canon, so I don't want to offend anybody. I don't really know it all. Anyway, start with our jokes, Kylo. Let's do it.
What do you call Chewbacca when he has chocolate in his hair?
Chocolate covered Chewbacca.
No.
Oh, what do you call him?
A chocolate chip Wookiee.
Oh, a chocolate chip Wookiee. That is hilarious.
Oh, and I got another.
Oh, you got another one. Okay, let's do it.
Who serves food at the Death Star restaurant?
Who does serve food at the Death Star restaurant?
Darth Vader.
Oh, Darth Vader. Oh, you better tip him pretty well, huh? Yeah, okay. So, we are going to make flourless chocolate cake. Today we are going to use dairy as we make it, but you definitely don't have to. And this recipe automatically calls for separated eggs, but hopefully you've been joining our entire series. You can kind of see my approach to all things food. If it has eggs in it in some capacity, by and large, we can combine, separate, or divide all of those into whatever we want. So right off the bat, I'm gonna make this and it's gonna be kind of a light, spongy, airy cake that has a nice crispy kind of shell on it, not super dissimilar from French macaroons, which I also love. It's just obviously much larger. If you wanted this to be super dense, super rich, really in your face, kind of like a brownie, you would just use the whole eggs without separating them like we're gonna do today. Or if you wanna make it even lighter still, what you could do is you could whip both parts of the eggs, and I'll kind of readdress that as we get there. But first step, get our lightsabers off of our workstation so we have a clean, safe workstation, lightsaber free. We don't want any incidents. Okay, we can just throw that on the floor, I guess. Stand. Okay, Kylo, this isn't how I expected this to go. All the way back up, let's join us. Okay, so first things first, we need a vessel to put this in. Traditionally, I make all of my cakes in giant sheets because then I can come back and cut them to the size I need them. Because there's a good chance that this is going to be the only size that I need, and this is going to be really easy for me to cook in. This is one of the few things that I will use a tube pan for. I typically don't like them because they have very limited use. They take up a lot of space. They don't really stack or clean very well, so I don't use them often, but today we will. What we're going to do with it is we're going to take this, I didn't have any spray, oh well, and we are going to put our parchment liner in there, and then I'm going to send Kylo to get me some non-stick spray out of the pantry, because I forgot. Seriously, Dad? Oh, watch out for your lightsaber. It's the orange, yeah, right. Alright, come on Kylo, bring it in here, use the force. Alright, good job. Now, I'm going to be using my non-stick spray. I always spray over the sink or the trash can because my big thing is safety. And because I'm going to use a flourless chocolate cake, I'm going to dust this with cocoa powder. Now I have the super real deal delicious dark stuff. If you have Hershey's or anything else, you can use it. If you want to have an even crispier shell on your cake, you can use sugar. You can start adding in other stuff. If you need it to be gluten-free, just make sure you're using...
Sounds good.
Thank you. Just make sure you're using gluten-free alternatives. But if you have big lofty goals for what this will be at the end, you can start dusting it with things that coincide. For example, If I knew I wanted this to be a s'more cake, I would dust the edge with graham crumbs. Be delicious. But there we have our cocoa and spray. This is what's going to help keep our cake from sticking. We can set this aside. Now, I have previously melted my butter and my chocolate together. You can use any grade of chocolate for this. Yes, Kylo?
This is just so icky.
Okay, well, that's fine. We're almost done. Just relax, Kylo. Just don't scratch. You're fine. Anyway, you can use any percentage or grade of chocolate in this. You could even go and kind of what we would call slum it, and you can use Hershey's or any other thing that you have, because we're not worried about it having a ton of structure. We just want that chocolate flavor. If this is one of those things where you have tried to practice crystallizing or tempering chocolate to make fancy truffles or showpieces or anything, and you end up burning it, or your chocolate gets bloomed, like when you come home from the grocery store and you open a chocolate and it's all waxy and white and looks weird, that's because the fat has separated and then it recrystallized the wrong way. You can use that for this because we don't need it to crystallize. So really, this is any chocolate you want. You could use white chocolate. Obviously, we only have cocoa powder for the pan, but you can use white chocolate, milk chocolate, all of the fancy flavored chocolates that exist now. You're good to go. And of course, we used butter today. If you want to keep it dairy-free, just use oil or a coconut substitute or shortening or whatever. Because it is suddenly almost summer in Texas for today, I just put it together with the lid on it, left it in the sunny window, and it melted it for me. It was really simple. I didn't have to do anything. Of course, you could melt it in the microwave. You could melt it over a double boiler. If you are a risk taker, you can melt it directly in a pot. Any of those three work. We just need to melt together our fat and our chocolate. And we will stir it together with our fancy tool, a butter knife. And I'm going to hand this over to Kylo just to gently stir. Stir, stir, stir. Keep it all in there. I want you to hold the side. Okay, hold. I want you to hold the side.
But it's hot.
It's not hot. And I want you to stir very gently. We want to keep it all in there. Now to that we will add our egg yolks. And this is why I've separated my eggs, is I want to achieve kind of a spongy, cakey texture with my cake, right? Again, if you want it more dense, you would just have the whole eggs combined, like you crack them fresh and you combine it. That's all you need. If you want to make it even lighter still, what you would do is you would combine the chocolate, the fat, and the egg yolks, and you would whip those like you do a meringue. It will take a lot longer, but you can whip it up. That is technically, traditionally, what is called a parfait or a pâte à bombe, right, in the old French speak. So, Kylo, you keep stirring that. I have my egg whites, and I have some sugar over here. We're going to make a traditional French meringue. If you want to do it the classic way, we add some to start. We crank it up. When it starts to look a little bit like shaving cream, we add a little more. And then we add a little more until we get a beautiful French meringue. We need this to have medium to full stiff peaks. The goal is not to over whip it. Keep going, bud. All right. Now, I want you to stir this. Stir. Stir. Come on, you're left-handed. Hold the thing. Stir, stir, stir. Gently. And I'm going to pour in these egg yolks. Keep stirring. Stir, stir, stir. Now, as with all things, I scale this because I want it in the recipe, so we need to make sure it actually gets in there. And Kylo here is going to stir, 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 until that's nice and even. My meringue looks nice. We're going to add some more sugar.
Like this?
Yep, keep stirring, bud. We need to get it all in there. Now, with my meringue, I need it to be a fully developed meringue before I can start flavoring it, but I can definitely add flavoring to it. I can use different types of sugar. It's best to use white sugar if you're going to make a French meringue, but you could use brown. But you're going to see I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla. And if I wasn't worried at all about my kids or the baking process or how expensive it is or anything else, what I would say is you can definitely add alcohol or liquors. A whole shot of bourbon, a nice shot of Malibu, some rum, really goes a long way for this. Keep going, bud, keep stirring. We need this to keep stirring until it's really nice. Okay? So, the question is, what's in the bowl? Egg whites and sugar. That is it. That is the meringue. We have our egg whites, our sugar. I just added some vanilla extract. Again, it could be liquor. It could be any other extract. It could be a little bit of espresso powder. I'm also going to add some salt, because salt and chocolate definitely go together. And if you want to go, this is Texas after all, If you want to start making it a little spicy, some ancho powder, some chili powder, something like that, totally fine. I like orange extract. My wife hates chocolate and orange combination, so we don't do that. But again, extract goes in the meringue, really nice. Kylo has done a fantastic job mixing our chocolate mixture. It's homogeneous, it's smooth, it's shiny, it's awesome. Today,
Is it yummy?
it's yummy, but you're not going to taste it. Even though these are pasteurized egg yolks, I don't want you eating raw egg yolks, okay? Okay. Now, the chocolate I'm using today is what I consider the entryway to dark chocolate for most people. It is 66%. It is bittersweet. You can, of course, go all the way up even to include 100% chocolate. It will be super bitter, but by the time we add the yolks and a little bit of sugar and stuff, it'll back off a little bit. Or again, we can even use white chocolate for this. It'll be really rich and fatty and pretty delicious. So, I have a meringue, I have a base, right? We have fully developed peaks. I like the little swoop. We check from top to bottom. We get what's called the parrot's beak on it. It should gently just cascade over. It's still got enough to wiggle, right?
Hey, it kind of looks like a bird.
Yeah, that's why it's called a parrot's beak. Okay, to this, we will go ahead and add our cocoa powder. Now the cocoa powder is what's gonna act like our flour in this. So, if you want to add another powder, like cinnamon or ginger or something like that, you definitely could. I would start with slightly more than the cocoa powder because cocoa powder stiffens up much more than cinnamon would, but you could blend these even more. So for me, I like to have kind of really adventurous chocolate dining experiences. If I were to take my meringue and I were to add a shot of bourbon, and then I were to use half cocoa powder, half cinnamon powder, that's a pretty delicious cake. Or if I use some orange extract, and over here I had some ginger, suddenly I've got an orange ginger chocolate cake, and all I had to do was sub out one of the ingredients for another. Everything else is really straightforward. Next we add our chocolate. We can just stream this right in.
The chocolate just looks so yummy.
Yeah, you like the look of chocolate there, Kylo? Yeah, that's why we keep it pretty neutral around here. Kylo and several of the others, they just want their chocolate to be chocolate, and that's fine. There's definitely a place for that. So with this,
Chocolate land?
a chocolate lamb, sure. Now we're gonna fold this together. Now the traditional way of folding is we go top to bottom and we rotate around in a circle. You see how I'm moving the bowl, constantly moving top to bottom. That doesn't mean you have to be crazy delicate with it. Right now, if you want this to be super airy and light, almost like an angel food cake, you should be very delicate with it. But again, because I want kind of a standard cake texture, I can be a little more assertive. And, one second, Kylo, if I really want to, I can actually just use my whisk and I can mix that one less dish if I wanted to. What's up, Kylo? What's your question? It kind of smells like what?
Hershey.
That's your chocolate experience. Yes, it smells like Hershey to you. It is not Hershey. I have a big personal thing where I can't use Hershey in my products just because I charge too much money for them. Now, hopefully you'll see as this cake batter comes out, it is a full-blown, delicious, gorgeous, silky smooth cake batter, right? Awesome. We want to make sure that everything's well mixed. If you see any little spots, don't be afraid to give it a little twirl in the pan. We want to make sure it all gets in there. After all, we scaled it and weighed it. You can see this recipe will make a pretty decent sized 9-inch or an 8-inch. If you want to make anything smaller, like smaller in diameter, I would go ahead and bake the sheet that I mentioned earlier and cut it out. Because what happens is, because this has so little flour, even though there's not technically wheat flour, the cocoa acts as flour in this, and because there is so little, if it is too tall, it is very unlikely that it will cook all the way through in the center. We'll get something that's more like a coulant, which is delicious, but then it's too big, and there's a whole other thing that goes into that. So, what do you think, Kylo? Does it look good?
Yeah.
Now, because this is all chocolate and it's completely flourless, by and large, right? If we wanted to come back and add chocolate chips, or we wanted to add some nuts, or something very light to it, we can definitely do that. Just make sure that you add so little that we're not weighing it down, because it is going to souffle a little bit. Yes, Kylo?
I'll be right back.
Oh, we're almost done, Kylo. Why don't you just hang out? Okay. So, we're gonna throw this in the oven. We're gonna throw it in a relatively cool oven. It's about 325 degrees. Stop scratching yourself. Stop. Just stop. We're gonna take it off in a second. We're gonna throw it in at 325 degrees. I'm using convection. If you are using a still oven, I would recommend it closer to 350 degrees and bake it until it is completely set. It doesn't wobble or anything. What is extremely likely to happen, and this is with all of the forms, if you use whole egg, separated egg, or you whipped both parts of the eggs, it's likely that it will rise very, very high, and then as it cools, it will condense and it will crack on top. That's completely normal with a flourless chocolate cake. If for some reason you want to avoid that at all costs, just bake it at a very low temperature. Usually when things crack, it's because they go through extreme temperature swings. So, that is it. I'm going to throw this in the oven. I noticed that there's typically a lag on Facebook. So if there are any questions, submit those. We're going to throw this in the oven, and then we'll see if Kylo has anything to add, or we'll answer your questions. In the oven, we look at questions. All right, Kylo, what do you think? Was that cool? It was so easy, right? Right? So, a 9-inch cake that we just made will take about 25 to 35 minutes. Start checking it at 20 minutes. It's always a good idea to check it sooner than later. So I'll even check mine at 10 minutes to make sure it's not like a hot spot in the oven, it's not burning or anything like that. Especially if we added particulates, we want to make sure that those aren't burning on the top. But otherwise, around a half hour for a 9-inch is about where we're at. What do you like to eat with chocolate, Kylo? Kylo, Jurassic Park? Just chocolate?
Not just chocolate. I like s'mores.
S'mores. Good deal. So, as we talked about with the s'more, if I wanted to coat my pan with graham cracker crumbs, and then I put my cake in there, the particulate to that could totally be, we could throw mini marshmallows into the cake, and it will bake inside of the chocolate, so then we have a s'mores pie. One of our good friends is saying hi. She works in healthcare, and we want to say thank you to all of our healthcare workers, right, buddy? Yeah, and food delivery people, and grocery store workers. Anybody who's working hard right now trying to keep us safe, get us out of this situation, right, dude? Otherwise, we'll all end up like you with face masks forever. Yeah, we don't want face masks forever. Oh, look, Blaze showed up. What's up, Blaze? I thought you were Kylo Ren. So the question is fruit too heavy? Depending on the fruit, probably. Most people, in my experience, don't tend to like cooked fruit with chocolate. The exception there would be bananas. And you could add a little bit of banana puree. I think you'd be better served finding a fruit gelato or making a fresh fruit salad and adding it to it. But adding fruit to it, it would have to be cut very, very fine. And it would change the way it cooks because it kind of turns into mush. But it will still turn out to be a successful cake. If you have a favorite fruit and chocolate combination, go for it. Kind of the exception there is coconut because it's a fruit and a nut, but it dries instead of gets more wet as it cooks. So you can add little bits of coconut, flake coconut, shredded coconut. That won't change it too much at all. I would still recommend a really nice fruit gelato on the side. Will solve all your problems. Now, what am I going to do with this cake when it's done? Flourless chocolate cake is very often eaten by itself. You just kind of cut it into little slices and enjoy it, kind of like we do brownies. Or you can assemble it using the ganache that we've learned earlier in the series. You can actually stack those together and create your own chocolate cake, right? Choco-lot on everything. Chocolate ganache, we saw how versatile that is. We saw that we can use it as frosting. We saw that we could flavor it. We've talked about the cake and how we can flavor that a whole bunch of different ways. So you have so much versatility with a few simple ingredients. Yeah, chocolate. The one thing that I'm still trying to impress upon Kylo Blaze here is chocolate is very expensive. So we have to be careful how much of it we eat willy-nilly. Right, bud?
Yum chocolate.
Yum chocolate. Okay. Well, we're going to let that cook. We'll capture a photo once it's out, unless something happens to it. If somebody sticks their lightsaber in it too quickly. Kylo. Alright, so hopefully we'll get a photo of it. If not, we'll see you guys Thursday when Chef Blaze will be in charge, and I will have to stand here and just hope for the best. We'll see you guys.